What's going on, Wiz Nation? And welcome to another episode of DC Hoopla. Before I get started, definitely like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube page, DC Hoopla. Also, follow me on Twitter and Instagram under the same username. So, once again, I'm going to talk about the Washington Wizards. But what I'm going to actually do is talk about their issues and why they're not considered a desirable location, why they've also have never really been contenders. So before I do that, I definitely want to give a shout out to my main man D-Can, who had paid a visit on DC Hoopla on the 4th of July. Definitely follow him on Wizards Mafia. Subscribe to his YouTube page, which is Wiz Takes. Also, follow him on Twitter under DC Mafia. Subscribe to his Patreon account. And also look for him on IG. I'm going to give another shout out to a comment that I had received on the DC Hoopla with me talking with Wiz Takes this past Sunday to Mahad Muhammad. And I just want to read his comment, which was a very insightful comment pertaining to the Wiz, which he says, Tier 1 coaches do not have faith with our front office management, which is very true. Ineptitude management, miscalculated draft picks, lack of cap flexibility. Ted's soul is not invested within the Wizards. This is something that D-Can has always said. He always felt that Ted Leonsis was more loyal to the Capitals than he is when it comes down to the Wiz. And there definitely can be some truth to that, because the Capitals did win a championship, a Stanley Cup championship in 2018, and Ted Leonsis before they won the Stanley Cup championship. And I cannot recall what year it was, but I remember reading an article where Ted Leonsis apologized to Alexander Ovechkin for failing him. And I remember before the Caps even won the championship, hearing on a radio station when they were saying, was it time to trade Ovi? Ted never did. He kept Ovi, finally got the type of players that Ovi needed to be surrounded with, and they won a championship, the Stanley Cup championship in 2018. But let me continue with his comment from Muhammad. He said, we need to hire president of basketball operations first. I definitely don't disagree with that. So I will be touching on that. He said, allow the president of basketball operations to hire a new coach. He's preaching the gospel. Rebuild this team like the Suns or the Hawks. I definitely don't disagree with that either. So, hiring president of basketball operations. Currently, right now, Tommy Shepard is the general manager. Now, Tommy Shepard is still part of the Ernie Grunfeld regime. Another person I'm going to name is still part of the Ernie Grunfeld regime, and it's going to be unfavorable. But, this is the voice of the unheard, and you know me, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But Bradley Beal is also a piece that's left from the Ernie Grunfeld era. So I feel that Ted Leonsis does not want to hire a president of basketball operations. And the president of basketball operations, or the person who could have gotten that job, whose name has been flying around for the past 2 years, was Masai Ujiri, who is the president of operations with the Toronto Raptors. Now, there's a lot of different things that plays a part of why I believe Ted Leonsis didn't go after him. Now, allegedly, back in 2019, there was a rumor or a report that came out that Ted Leonsis was willing to offer him $10 million a season and a percentage of ownership stake in the Wizards. And then it got leaked out. The Toronto Raptors, of course, went ahead and re-signed him, I think, for 2 more seasons to keep him. This time around, his name kept being thrown around again through the rumor mill. But then there was a report, and there was only one person that put this report out, that said that Ted Leonsis was not willing to pay Ujiri the amount of money he possibly would have been seeking. Now, Masai Ujiri traded DeMar DeRozan, who was a Toronto Raptors favorite and a Toronto Raptors fan favorite, for Kawhi Leonard. In that same season, the Toronto Raptors won the championship. Smart move. It was a one-year rental, but they won a championship out of it. But Miroslav has also drafted guys like Siakam. He's also, have found guys like Fred VanVleet, OG. I don't want to mispronounce his last name. Who's also a backup shooting guard. I mean, he's made solid moves for that organization. And if he's still the president of operations, which he currently is now, he has an opportunity to draft with that fourth pick, to draft another solid piece. And I believe the Toronto Raptors will be back in the thick of things of going to the playoffs next season. The Wizards' problem has always been, to Muhammad's, to his point, is that bad draft picks. The most famous draft that I have to talk about is the 2011 draft. That just happened 10 years ago. That draft, we really, really, really fucked it up. And I did use the word fuck, but we fucked it up. That draft, Kawhi Leonard was available in that draft. Klay Thompson was in that draft. Draymond Green was in that draft. These guys were available, but Klay Thompson and Kawhi Leonard were definitely available. We had the number 6 pick. The 6th pick in that draft, and we picked Jan Vesely, who in about 3 seasons was out of the league. With the 18th pick that we acquired in a trade, we ended up picking Chris Singleton, who didn't last long in the NBA as well. In the 2nd round, we ended up drafting Shelvin Mack. Now, Shelvin Mack, of course, was coming off that Butler team that he played alongside with Gordon Hayward. And if I'm correct, I believe they went to the Final Four in 2011. So I'm assuming that Ernie Grunfeld was riding high off of that as far as the reason why he picked him. But of course, Shelvin Mack, he lasted a little bit longer than Jan Vesely and Chris Singleton in the NBA. But of course, he didn't last that long as a Wizard. Matter of fact, he had 2 stints with the Wizards. But that draft, we really wet the bed in that draft. And it was a draft that set us back for so many seasons. The Wizards have had this attitude where they would decide, this season we're not going to draft. And we've watched them trade away draft picks. I mean, they traded away a 1st-round pick to get Marcin Gortat. They traded away a 1st-round pick to get Markieff Morris. They traded away a 1st-round pick to acquire Bogey Bogdanovic. Now, those players, with the exception of Bogey Bogdanovic, because he was only just a rental for like 3 months. Markieff Morris, Marcin Gortat, they were solid players for this organization. But they didn't give us exactly what we needed. We didn't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals with these guys. Luckily for us, those picks that we traded away, they didn't really turn out to be solid players. I want to say the last pick that we traded away, which was, Bogey Bogdanovic, when we traded that 1st-round pick, it turned into Jared Allen, who currently plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. If he was on the Washington Wizards, we probably wouldn't have used him properly, because we also have a bad habit of not developing young guys. That goes even before Ted Leonsis became the owner of the team. So the issue with the Wizards has always been lack of salary cap flexibility. Now, we actually had cap flexibility back in 2016, but that was the same offseason where the whole KD to DC rumors were flying around, and KD didn't even entertain talking to us. So then we went through this, I would call it more so, as I told Decan, in my opinion, I felt that Al Horford uses as leverage. So we almost had Al Horford as a Wizard. I believe the deal that we had on the table for him was a 5-year deal for like $98 million. And that's when the Celtics came out and gave him $110 million, and he ended up going to Boston. Now, when I look back on it, kind of glad we didn't sign Al Horford, because Al Horford was actually okay for the Celtics, but at the time he was 30. I believe he was 30 at the time. And then, as you know, since he's been bounced around the last several seasons. So that would have been a bad contract. But what we ended up doing was we ended up giving that money to Ian Mahinmi, and we signed him to this ridiculous contract, this contract deal for like 5 seasons for $64 million. And this guy didn't even average 10 points a game. Not one of those seasons as a Wizard. And Ian Mahinmi was never a solid player. You know, I remember him when he played for the Mavericks. I remember him when he played for the Pacers. And he was never really a player that I felt we should have even been in the mix for. Because not only did we sign Ian Mahinmi, but we also signed Andrew Nicholson that same offseason, which that was a bad sign because we ended up trading that contract away. We traded him to the Brooklyn Nets, and then eventually, I think the Brooklyn Nets went ahead and bought him out of his contract, and he's been out of the league ever since. So the organization has never been able to get out of their own way, and I've constantly said that. So then we fast forward to right now. As I stated earlier in this video, Bradley Beal is that last player who is part of the Ernie Grunfeld regime that's still on this team. And this organization is begging and pleading this guy to stay here. Now, I saw today where, you know, they put out that Bradley Beal is the only Washington Wizard / Bullet player to play in the USA team, which, you know, does not say a lot about this organization. Now, Beal and John Wall have tried out for the USA team, but never been able to make the USA team. But Bradley Beal is currently on the USA team, and he's representing the Washington Wizards. That gives him more leverage, you know, when it comes down to negotiating his contract. Keep in mind, this guy he's third All-NBA. And he also is a 3-time All-Star. He's in his prime. He's not entering. He's in his prime. He's in his prime right now. I don't know if he's going to get any better than what he already is. But for the organization to pretty much try to beg and plead this guy to stay here says a lot about how we operate. And then we're going through searching for a coach. And we have plenty of assistant coaches that we're looking at. We're trying to narrow down who's going to be the coach. I think it's more so we're trying to figure out which coach is really interested in taking the job, because I've already said that the job is not desirable. You know, when you basically have a shooting guard that you don't know if he's going to commit to long term, when you have a point guard who makes as much money as Russell Westbrook, who's on the wrong side of 30, who is slowly declining. I don't care what Westbrook fans say. They try to act like this guy is immortal for some reason. You know, they're out here slandering Chris Paul. They're bitter because Chris Paul is in the finals. I mean, Westbrook has been in the finals before, but for whatever reason, they're just slandering Chris Paul because he's up in there. And then you have a bunch of young guys that the organization has not really tried to develop. Which brings me to another situation, another point. So, in baseball, you have Ohtani. And Ohtani is one hell of a pitcher, and he's also one hell of a hitter for the Anaheim Angels. And he's the first player in baseball to do what he's doing right now. And he's from Japan. So when I'm looking at him, and I was talking to D-Can about him yesterday, and I said, you know what, man? I said, why are the Washington Wizards doing this for Rui Hachimura? Now, Rui Hachimura is going to be carrying the flag, the Japanese flag, for the Olympics this year. He's carrying his flag. Okay? Rui Hachimura is the first Japanese player to be drafted in the NBA, as high as he is. Marketing-wise, the Washington Wizards focusing on his opportunity. And you should be marketing this guy as such. When I'm looking at how the Anaheim Angels are enjoying watching Ohtani do what he does, I'm asking myself, Wizards, you have Rui Hachimura, who's also a Japanese player. You see flashes. You see the talent. You see it. Why are you not marketing this guy? This is where I say that this organization gets in their own way. You have something that could possibly be special, and you're not even trying to see what you have because you're too busy worrying about what the hell Bradley Beal is going to do. Bradley Beal is 28 years old. Rui Hachimura is what, 22? He's 23. You need to start focusing on this guy, see what he can do. I believe that this guy has the hit factor, but the Wizards have to believe it themselves, and they get in their own way. So let me go back to what I said about the job not being desirable for a head coach. It's not, I think when you look at a guy like Sam Cassell, because I read that the Wizards are not going to hire him, you almost have to wonder why. How did that interview go? Were there questions that were being asked? Maybe Sam Cassell wanted to know what happened. Why did y'all trade John Wall? Remember, he was here when John Wall was young. Maybe Sam Cassell also asked, hey, do you guys, what are you going to do if Bradley Beal doesn't stay? Do you guys have any intentions of trying to move him? The organization constantly keeps saying no, but again, this organization, not that I was a fan of this guy, said the exact same thing about Otto Porter, that they were not going to trade him. But eventually they did trade him. They were forced to trade him. And the sad part about that was you had a guy and Kelly Oubre, who we should have kept and paid him the money, who could have been a solid piece for this team. You traded him away to keep Otto Porter. I feel had the Wizards not been foolish and traded Kelly Oubre away, he would have solved the issue at the 3 spot. You wouldn't have to worry about, damn, we don't really have anybody that can play the 3. So now we're dealing with Denny Avdia, and we're not even trying to see what he can do for this team. So we will probably be stupid and end up trading him away and then actually watch him on another team play solid and actually see what tools he has. So as always, like I've said numerous of times, the Wizards' issues start from the top. It starts with management. When management can get out of their damn way and just allow things to organically happen, it'll be fine. To me, it seems like the organization is almost allergic to some form of success. Why is the basketball team the only franchise that's not really trying to win ball games or try to be great? I didn't mention the football team because I'm not a fan of them. They got issues themselves. I'm a Raiders fan, so I could care less about the WFT, as they call themselves now. I could care less about them. But as I said before, what I see out of Ted Leonsis is a lot of Dan Snyder, where he wants to kind of control everything. So I believe with a lot of the things that the Wizards have done in the past, with the blunders in the draft, with the bad contracts that they've given out, some of the dumbass trades they've made, I think if they haven't done some of those things as many times as they have, this job would actually be desirable. They would have actually had a head coach. They would have already had a commitment, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. I believe that the plan is to have a head coach in place before the draft. The draft is on the 28th of this month. It's a possibility to be able to get somebody to come and take this job. But 9 times out of 10, whichever coach that's coming to take this job, it's going to most likely be a coach, as D-Ken said, who's going to probably be a 4th voice, who's really not going to have too much of a say-so. So I believe a lot of these guys that they're coaching, like, should I say that they're interviewing, such as Wes Unseld Jr., the Sam Cassells of the world, and maybe even Darvin Ham. These guys are probably asking the organization, okay, what's in it for me? What kind of authority do I have? Because I would like to have some input on the roster. And if the Wizards organization is saying, well, we're going to put out the roster the way we want to put it out there, this could be the reason why they have not found a head coach yet. So I agree. You got to get a general manager who has a vision. You can't bring a general manager who's still a part of the old regime. Tommy Shepard has been here for a very long time. Now, he's well respected around the league. And I will give Tommy Shepard some credit as far as drafting Rui, drafting Denny, trading for Daniel Gafford, even signing Howell Neto. I mean, those are not bad moves that he's made. But what I need from him is to make a blockbuster move. Right now, he's in the show me state. I don't know if he's all in on keeping Bill. I don't know what is what. But again, as I said in one of my previous recordings, if a team comes to the Wizards with an offer they cannot refuse, they have to listen. Like I said, if the idea that I had mentioned, which is Jaylen Brown is presented for Bradley Beal and, maybe a draft pick or something like that, the Wizards getting the draft pick back, you have to entertain that idea. Because for one, Jaylen Brown is 4 years younger than Bradley Beal, and he makes less money than Bradley Beal. You know what you're going to get out of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown can also grow with Denny and Rui and Daniel Gafford and whoever you decide to pick with the number 15 pick, which will be for the next episode that I'll talk about who do the Washington Wizards draft with the number 15 pick. Or should the Washington Wizards consider trading up? I'm not really too keen on them trading down. I would rather for them to trade up. But once again, this team, this organization has to get out of their own way. They have got to stop being bullheaded. They need to face the music, and they got to change their act. They got to change their reputation, because people in the league talk, man. Who's to say that Scott Brooks did not talk to other people around the league? Doesn't talk to other coaches. Tell them, hey, man, you know what? This is my experience when I was in Washington. I wouldn't go there if I was you, the coach. I mean, if they're going to offer you a lot of money, by all means, take it. But don't really expect much of anything. This team definitely needs a disciplinarian as a head coach. But again, it does start from the top. It starts from the owner, goes down to the general manager, to the coach, down to the players. But the problem starts with the owner not willing to spend the money to bring in a person that has a true vision for this franchise. It's definitely been a pleasure for you guys. Listen to me, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram at DC Hoopla, and follow me on IG at DC Hoopla as well. This is K. Jose, signing out.